נחמו נחמו עמי כה אמר האלוהים נחמו נחמו עמי כה אמר האלוהים ישראל ישראל
Welcome to beautiful Shomron, Samaria, the heart of the umbilical cord of Israel, the place where Abraham put his first altar. And now we are in the midst of the war and in the aftermath of the terrible massacre of Simchat Torah Shabbat, the 7th of October 2023. And we've come to interview some of the people here of what is happening in Samaria during this time. But before we do this interview that will be very enlightening, I'm going to read to you some scriptures. It says in Jeremiah 31 verse 3, "Again I will build you, so you will be rebuilt, virgin Israel. Again you will take up your tambourines and ornaments and go out to dances of merrymakers. Again you will plant vineyards on the hills of Samaria. Planters will plant and use them. For there will be a day when watchmen will call out in the hill country of Ephraim and say, Arise, let us go up to Zion, to Adonai, our God, our Elohim." And that's what we've done. We're watchmen, and we are right here in the area of Samaria where we've planted a few orchards of many different kinds of fruit trees, and we came to see how they are in the midst of the war. For Samaria has been actually a place of contesting for quite a long time. So I'm going to invite Ori right now, who is actually in the IDF and also a citizen of this area. אורי, שלום לך, טוב לראות אותך, טוב להכיר אותך, ובוא תספר לנו קצת על המצב. אני שמעתי שאתה פגשת כמה אנשים בזמן האחרון. מי אתה בכלל?
שלום, אני גר פה כבר בערך 6 שנים.
Shalom. I've lived in this place for 6 years in this community and in the area of Samaria for 10 years. We're surrounded by Arab villages all around. There's no security fence and everything is open and exposed. From the other side we can see their villages. Ever since the war started, we've been guarding the area ourselves. If we're not on guard here, no one will provide watchmen. The Israeli army removed its units. Most of its forces went to the Gaza border area and to the Lebanese border. And we're here in a confrontational area because there are many Palestinians who support terrorism and Hamas. They believe this area is theirs, and they are willing to employ violent means to achieve their aims. So, as for me, and I'm serving reserve duty in this area, we patrol every day in the morning, afternoon, and at night. Some of our personnel do it as volunteers who aren't actually called up to the army. Some of us, like me, are indeed called up to the IDF reserve units. Yesterday on a routine patrol, we spotted an Arab shepherd on the roadside in the village below us. We detained him.
אנחנו יודעים שרק אתמול, משהו שלכאורה תמים, בסוף רואה צאן, אבל
We heard of a similar situation in the Benjamin area. When they detained him, they checked his cell phone and discovered that the phone was full of pictures of ISIS, Hamas, and support for terror activity. There were aerial pictures of the community. They can appear as innocent shepherds, but we know that they are not so. If we don't stand on guard with our weapons and fight for this place, it won't stand. At present, even though the army is supposed to be stationed here, they're not. We don't blame the army as they have important priorities, but the army isn't here. So we residents and citizens determined to be prepared, and we don't want what happened in the Gaza border communities to happen to us with a surprise attack. So we're armed and ready to defend ourselves. The weapons and equipment we have available is not the latest, and we need upgrades, as we have no security fence. There aren't enough security cameras. We'll show you around so you can see our situation and how close we are to the surrounding Arabs and the easy path they have to get to us. It's so close, the access is easy.
We can hear from Ori that at this point in time, this place is not protected enough. So we need to pray for the protection of this place and also the finances that are needed to be able to equip them with all that they need to defend themselves. When it tells about a shepherd coming up with the cows here and in the area of Benjamin as well, it sounds kind of like, something innocent. But it is not innocent, because that is their way to come and do reconnaissance and to actually find out what are the weak places, how can they attack properly. And that's the reason when they took their phone and they looked in the phone and they saw all kinds of stuff from Daesh, from ISIS, and from Hamas, and all kinds of maps and things like that, that actually shows how they could attack these areas. It is not an innocent matter. And this particular front here, and I call it a front, has been actually hot for a long time, but it's been neglected for a long time. And the people that are here, the Israelis, the Jewish people that are here setting this area, have been great heroes, literally bringing their babies, their children, and now the women, look, the women and the children are almost alone in this area at this point, because most of the fighting men have been drafted to the Gaza front or to the northern front, which are the two most important fronts right now, and especially the Otef Gaza around Gaza. However, they've kind of forgotten this thing in the middle, and so we've got to cover for that, both in prayer and also even in giving, in helping them to have enough equipment to be able to detect any terror attack before it even comes, and even protect themselves. Now, Ori also said that they're surrounded by Arab villages, which we are going to see very soon as we go on. But I'm going to ask him a little bit about these Arab villages. בוא תספר לי קצת מה היחס בין הכפרים הערביים אליכם פה, האם באופן כללי זה שקט, או שבדרך כלל זה די מאיים?
יש זמנים כאלה ויש זמנים כאלה, בוא נאמר שאפשר
The relationship varies. Sometimes it's better, sometimes worse. Let's just say that when we travel on the main road, they often throw stones at our cars. When there's a terror attack elsewhere in the country, they celebrate and pass out candy. With us directly, they'll put on an innocent face saying they want good, friendly relations when they need us, like asking for work. But in the final analysis, when there's a terror attack behind our backs, their countenance changes. The problem is, one just can't tell whether it's a smile or a frown. They can appear very friendly and innocent, but we know their true nature. In the villages, they shoot in the air, celebrating the news of terror attacks elsewhere. So the relationship is such that we must be very cautious. We assume they're not innocent. That's just what I can say on the subject.
Yeah, well, you see, what happens is that this thing about shooting in the air, for example, or getting gleeful and happy when the Jewish people are massacred in Israel, or there is a terror attempt, is something that happens a lot. Much more than most people know about. For example, it's amazing, but even after some terror attacks, you will see a lot of fireworks, like on the 4th of July, like a great celebration of independence after terror attacks or during terror attacks. I remember that we were in the hotel in Jerusalem with our group of the United Nations for Israel during Sukkot when the massacre happened on the 7th of October, Simchat Torah, what we call the Black Shabbat today of Simchat Torah, unfortunately. And we had to run to the shelters, and we had to run like 5 times to the shelters. And the wife of a tour guide, our tour guide, that in general thought that, our neighbors are actually nice and it's us, the Israelis are always to blame, and that's why they're so angry. she came to me and she said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "See what?" And he says, "Well, did you see that waiter?" Because most of the waiters in the hotel were Arab waiters and even Israeli Arab waiters. And he says, "Did you see that? When they announced of the terrible massacre that happened today, they were happy," and he began to celebrate and get excited about it. And I said, "Are you surprised?" And she actually said, "Yes, I am surprised." She was surprised because she thought that in general neighbors want peace with us, but actually the Israelis are always to blame, and we should give more and more and more and help more and bless them more, and then they will be nice to us. But actually what is has proven to be exactly the opposite. And I want to tell a couple of stories of that before we go on with this particular interview, and we will interview a few more people today. But for example, I want to tell you what happened in the border with Gaza. One of the kibbutzim Be'eri, for example, they used to go every week to give money through the fence to the poor Palestinians inside of Gaza, and they were the first ones to be massacred that day because they had so much contact, so many relationships, that they managed to map their house. They knew exactly where everybody was, what they would be doing, and they were some of the first to be seriously massacred. I mean, I'm talking about people burnt alive, I'm talking about babies beheaded, I'm talking about people just murdered by cold blood, mutilated bodies, and they were some of the first ones, and they were the nicest ones to the people, the civilians in Gaza. But we need to understand that even when there are civilians, they may be Hamas sympathizers among them, and it's really hard to know who is who at this time. Then there was another one. There was another person, for example, all these people that were doing this party in kibbutz, near kibbutz and Nirim, and they actually were there at the border doing the party. You know, they were getting high and they were singing and they were celebrating and drinking and whatnot, celebrating peace with the neighbors. That's why they did it in that area. They did it in the border because they wanted to celebrate peace with the neighbors, that they were one with the neighbors. And you know what happened that day? The first massacre that happened was right with the celebrants of that horrendous party that was supposed to be a peace party, and it became a massacre party during that time. So we need to realize that it's time to wake up, and even in the nations it's time to wake up, and it's time to stop giving the narrative as if you can give the narrative from a place of neutrality, because there is no real place of neutrality. Of course, every coin has many sides, at least two sides, you know, but the truth is that we've forgotten that Israel has tried to be a super pacifist in the Middle East, super, giving everything, giving land. Even Ehud Barak at some point wanted to divide Jerusalem and give it as a capital to the Palestinians, all this, but they refused. And let's go back to 1947, when the UN decided that there will be a division of the land of Israel between an Arab nation and a Jewish nation. The Arabs absolutely they disagreed and they refused, and then Ben-Gurion did a unilateral step of establishing the state of Israel, and then we were attacked from all sides by all the Arab nations because they're not interested in having peace. They are interested in having the whole area and getting us annihilated. I've mentioned it I don't know how many times, and I will mention it one more time. I believe it's not enough times to be mentioning this. The whole Palestinian cause is the fruit of the visit between the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Haj Amin el-Husseini, that performed the massacres of 1929 and 1936, and terrible massacres. I mean, my family lives in Moza, in the area where the massacres happened, terrible massacres. And he was ousted by the British. He went to Hitler in 1942 in Berlin. He met with Hitler, and he asked Hitler to raise up a cause, a Palestinian cause, the Palestinian army, for the purpose of executing the final solution within the land of Israel. So this is not only about Hamas. The entire Palestinian cause, the roots of it is the meeting between Haj Amin al-Husseini and between Hitler. This is historically true, and nobody can come and prove me wrong. And so when we do not deal with history, then we are going to let history repeat itself, and that history is what happened in the Second World War during the time of the Nazis. You know what? While I was talking, the wind blew away the cover of this guard post, and that shows you that their equipment is so deficient and they need better equipment. We are going to see now where the Arab villages are and how close they are from each other, with absolutely no fence in between, nothing. So in other sense, if something really happens, which again, it's not an exception. I mean, it has happened in the past. A lot of things have happened in the past in Samaria. And so we need to be wise, because right now there is really no protection.
All these new houses you see here, behind this row of houses there's Palestinian claimed land right up to the edge without a separation fence or property markings, and they say it's theirs. Since there's no security fence, they can get here easily. Free access, just behind these houses.
You see this path behind me. It takes to the next Arab village. You see those antennas, they are already the cellular antennas of the Palestinian village. But we're standing here on what is Israel's land officially. Okay, of course, biblically we could say it's from the river in Egypt to the Euphrates. But officially at this point, we are on what is called Area C. And they are not allowed, the Palestinians are not allowed to come into Area C. But because of this path behind, they constantly come with their car to the edge of it in a kind of a threat. And so that is what I mean by them being unprotected, no fences, no protection, except God is their only protection, and the soldiers that have been sent back to help.
All
these olive trees along the path are theirs. So they walk up these paths, we see them. Everybody who will live in the new houses will see them all the time, and there's no security fence or defensive separation, nor positions for the army around. Our aim for now is to deter them, so they see that we're here armed and ready to protect our homes. We need to be ready for offense as well in order to defend. I want my kids to be able to play outside safely. This is Area C, which is Israeli. So they have their villages and come along these paths to harvest the olives. Several weeks ago, at the beginning of the war, some Palestinians from the village came here, not to make war, but to press their claims on the land here. There was a big argument, as they said it's their land, even though it's not legally so. We'll take the legal action ourselves to protect this land, but they can still access the area easily. There are other tracts of land like this all around this community.
והמסיק הזיתים הזה היה בטלפון שלו כל מיני מפות של האזור, הבנתי.
That wasn't the olive harvesters, that was the shepherd.
Shalom, David. I understand that you are one of the first settlers. How many years?
About 25 years ago.
And you came here with your family, children. Tell us a little bit the story.
I came here from I lived in. I stayed there in the yeshiva for a few years, and then when I got married, after my first son was born, I came here, to be here.
And when you came here, it was like there was nothing. Tell me.
Almost nothing. We were 7 families here. I was the 7th family. We had a few caravans. We had a generator which broke down every here and there. We had no road. It was all like rocks, compressed rocks. No lighting outside. Very simple.
And the place therefore was empty, but in the midst of a lot of Arab villages that some of them or a lot of them may be quite hostile. And the question is, what brought you here?
I thought that it was important to come here. Wasn't easy, but it was a chance to do something, and we came, even though it was hard. It was hard.
But why is it important to be here?
This settlement here, this location, when you find the distance between the one, this settlement made a territorial sequence, and it made the Jewish settlement stronger It made all the by this settlement.
So territorial consistency, that sounds good. And have you had all kinds of experiences here that have been a bit frightening?
It happened here and there, sometimes, and we are now also in guard duty. Sometimes we jump when there's some kind of danger, and we protect our families, our home.
I can see that, and I see that you're pretty outfitted here. You told me that some of the outfitting you have is from the donations of people that have been helping outfit you so that you can defend yourself.
Mm-hmm. The army gives us the guns. This is their army gun. But all the other equipment, a lot of it comes from donations. We could have something very basic from the army, but these vests and hats and all kinds of other things, equipment that we need, communication, a lot of other things, flashlights, that's all donations. The army does not give us that.
How important it is to donate, actually to help them to defend themselves, to protect themselves, to have cameras that they can survey every time and defend the villages, just like David that came 25 years ago. And this is the story of this settlement, but I would go to many other settlements and they will tell me very, very similar stories, that it's they come with their families, they come with their children, they're willing to risk it all for the purpose of settling the land of Israel and really fulfilling prophecy. Remember what Psalms 105 said, that he remembers, God remembers his covenant forever, and even the covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, up to 1,000 generations, to give them, the Jewish people, Israel, the land of Canaan as their inheritance. And they come here, you know, they study in yeshivas, kind of schools of Jewish studies and other things, but they come here with faith, believing that they are a prophetic fulfillment to what God promised that will happen in this area, in spite of the threats, the difficulties, and especially as I'm recording this program in the aftermath of the terrible massacre and that showed all of Israel and the world of what this extreme Islamic Hamas that kind of takes the Palestinian cause to an extreme can actually do without any scruples and any conscience. So how important it is to actually pray for them and also help them to be outfitted. So this is my niece Or, and she has a few words to tell us here because she's come with her husband, and by now 2 babies. Who knows? When you watch it, there may be 3 babies, 4 babies, 5 babies, 12 babies, because they, you know, that's important to have babies. So we're going to ask her a few questions here because she was telling me about a village that's like beyond these olive trees here, where these antennas behind me are the already Palestinian antennas for their cell phones. Beyond these olives, there is another village that received a prize from Hamas. Okay, אז בואי תספרי לנו על זה.
I just want to explain to everyone so they have a clearer understanding. There's a tendency to think that Hamas is only in the Gaza Strip and that the Israeli Arabs are separate. But that's not the case. Hamas is right here. There's a village. When we travel on the road, they throw stones at our vehicles, sometimes Molotov cocktails and gunfire. This village received a Hamas commendation for their steadfastness for the jihadists and martyrs from there. And I want to explain that there's no difference between the separation of Hamas in Gaza and from the Israeli Arabs who are here. Hamas is here, and it doesn't matter how one calls them, whether Hamas, Islamic Jihad, or Fatah. They all desired the same thing, that we will no longer be here. It's a battle of light against darkness, but the light will triumph. We're the people of God, and we'll always be here. It doesn't matter what they're called. The conflict is not over a particular land ownership. It's a battle for survival, and that's what we must understand.
Amen, amen. And as Or is talking about this, I'm thinking to myself, it's written in the book of Joel, where it says, "V'Yehuda leolam teshev v'Yerushalayim midor ledor," and Judah will be forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation. And therefore, even though there is so many threats, all of this is leading to a great redemption, Geulah, a great salvation, Yeshua. It's leading to the completeness of the prophetic words that have been spoken by the prophets. But until we get to the fulfillment, there is a battle to fight. It's both spiritual and physical, and how important it is to stand on the side of Israel. We need to realize that we're not only standing on the side of Israel, we're standing on the side of the God of Israel. You know, often I say, do you really want to know a holy triunity? Let me show you a holy triunity. Here it comes. The God of Israel with the people of Israel and the land of Israel. And you cannot divide between the three of them. The three of them will forever go together. So when we stand with the rights of the Jewish people to inherit the land given to them by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, well, actually given by God to them and to all the people of Israel, we are actually standing on the side of the God of Israel. And we need to realize that at the end of the day, and in the middle of the day, and even at the beginning of the day, that is what really matters. When he said, "I will bless those who bless you," he said that to Abraham, repeated it to Isaac, to Jacob. Balaam, when he tried to curse Israel, he at the end couldn't. He had to bless Israel. We need to realize that "I will bless those who bless you" is not just a nice saying. It is a serious promise to those that stand on the side of Israel against all odds, not because Israel is always right, but because the God of Israel is always right. And that's what matters. And then he said, "I will curse those who curse Israel." In this case, it is two words, which is klala and mera, which means I will utter a word of curse or destruction, complete annihilation, to those that take Israel lightly. And we need to be very, very careful going forward. How do we take Israel when they are in a quest, in a prophetic quest from the God of Israel to settle the land of Israel? Let's put ourselves on the side of the God of Israel by blessing Israel, praying for her to be able to fulfill her role. And the truth is that when Israel fulfills her roles, all the nations will be blessed as well.